All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our presentation for the work that we've done for the Village Institute. And we will get into this a little bit more, but our presentation will basically be around defining and measuring success. So my name is Micaela Iveson, and this is
Rachel Kamnkhwani.
and we're both graduate students at the University of Denver. I'm a master's candidate in international development, and Rachel is a PhD candidate in education. So our client was the Village Institute.
So the Village Institute launched in 2019 as an entrepreneurship incubator with wraparound services for single refugee mothers in the Denver area. So they use human-centered design, and they plan to offer access to language classes, childcare, mental health services, job training, and housing all under one roof. So the first foray into the suite of the services would be housing and childcare. So while the current fellowship with Denver-based 4.0 schools will introduce measuring the impact of the Child Care Center, the Village Institute is in need of a metrics framework to evaluate their program and model. So at the core of the Village Institute's vision is reimagining refugee resettlement services by building a holistic housing-based resettlement program for refugees and underserved families that integrates business opportunities on site and crucial services such as community integration, childcare, trauma-informed, and culturally adapted workforce entrepreneurship.
So as we will discuss later, the core deliverable for this project is an evaluation tool that can be used to measure the program success through the success of the Village Institute's clients. In order to build this tool, we determined that there were 3 questions that we needed to answer. These are 1, how do other refugee resettlement organizations measure success? 2, what are our target clients' hopes and aspirations for resettlement? And 3, how can we best measure and articulate the Village Institute's impact toward its goals and use that information to inform programming? And through all of this work, it's critical to emphasize that the Village Institute's mandate to put the client's needs, desires, and visions at the heart of their programming drove this project and its intended outcomes. We put the principles of human-centered design, and particularly empathy given the client base, at the heart of our work. This is particularly true for the interview process, as we will come on to.
So one of our goals for this project was to solve the resettlement agency's measurement puzzle due to the lack of harmonized definitions of success for their clients. Even though these agencies serve the same population, they have different visual and expected outcomes for their clients. The available measurements mostly capture the same facets, mainly focusing on employment. Hence, we noticed that these miss other important dimensions that we'll later discuss in the presentation.
So these issues notwithstanding, we did gain useful insights from our industry analysis, both in how to approach the interviews as part of this project and how to construct the evaluation tools. The first insight is to lead with empathy, so we adopted trauma-informed interview styles. This meant taking the time to get to know our respondents, ensuring that we had established consent, and working to deconstruct power relations that tend to replicate harmful structures. We also learned that evaluations should allow us to capture greater nuance within our evaluations. For example, the government tends to measure employment as a binary indicator. Someone is either employed or they aren't. But we learned that this is much more of a spectrum for many clients. Maybe they have a job, but it isn't the field that they're trained for, or maybe it doesn't enable them to pay their bills, or it exaggerates health issues, etc. Binary measures also don't allow for questions to be tailored to the individual. For example, depending on the employment status of a client or trauma, family situation, etc., before reaching Colorado, successful employment could look very differently. Thus, we quickly realized that effective evaluation tools must capture this nuance. Finally, we learned that quality of life is about more than employment status, but about other areas that contribute to happiness, like mental health, the perception that one's children are adjusting well, and the integration of hobbies and companionship. Thus, evaluation metrics should also be prepared to measure these types of, perhaps less conventional, areas of success.
So in order to capture these needs, desires, and experiences of the clients, we developed a comprehensive interview template that captured 6 dimensions of respondents' resettlement experiences, and these are family, kids and education, health, safety, social integration, physical and mental health, and digital and financial literacy. We also interviewed the refugees agency community and stakeholders to get their perspectives on resettlement success and what it means to them, and what it possibly means to their clients as well. We also try to use empathy interviewing techniques to ensure that we break down the potential barriers that would hinder us from getting information we needed. We also established consent by providing an overview of our project and how the information they will share will potentially benefit them and other people in their community.
Our key findings fell into these three buckets of support, access, and health. So first, support. The client's community and networks were generally raised as one of the most important elements for success. Many found their housing or jobs through their network and expressed how sharing a language and culture eased their integration. Moreover, several women identified their desire to take a more active leadership role in their communities, including participating in workshops and sharing their knowledge with other refugees. Logistical support, specifically around transportation and childcare, were cited by both clients and service providers as two significant components to refugee integration, as they help catalyze access to other activities and services. It is worth noting that the clients interviewed for this analysis all had access to these services, which enabled them to be in the room to be interviewed at all. Thus, the perception of their significance could be even higher for those not interviewed because of those barriers. Another area worth considering is having general stipulations for legal documents, i.e. leases, translated and readily available as a resource for those who are unclear about the obligations of such documents. 2, access. Language acquisition was also repeatedly identified as a key pillar to success. Nearly every woman specifically mentioned this area either as something that aided them in adaptation or as an ambition for them. It was also highlighted by every agency staff member interviewed. A parallel issue is in the delivery mechanisms for relevant information. For example, many clients may be more accustomed to getting information through radio communication or interpersonally, while a significant amount of information, particularly related to COVID-19, is provided in written form. This raises concerns around clients whose literacy might not be at a place where written information is most accessible. Moreover, some agency staff interviewed indicated that differences in legal processes could create problems for clients who sign paperwork without fully understanding the obligations that they are undertaking. And finally, health. Interestingly, none of the refugees interviewed indicated that mental health was an important area for them or one that required additional attention. Survey responses intended to gather more information about this point were generally skirted over, which could indicate an understandable discomfort in talking about something so personal with strangers, cultural norms and stigmas around mental health, language barriers, or some combination therein.
So we took all these findings and narrowed them down into 4 pillars that could describe the resettlement experience and under which we could recognize our evaluation questions. So these are employment, language, community, and family. So in the next slide, we're going to dig deeper into these 4.
So first, employment. Specific areas included finding an enjoyable, relevant job that enables them to provide for their families. Some women mentioned wanting to become teachers, while others said that services that connect them with clear job skills, for example, the sewing group at the African Community Center, helped them to find success. This indicates that measuring goal setting and progress towards these goals can help articulate a degree of success, even for those who have not yet reached full employment. An important consideration of this area is the women's access to training programs that are suitable given their English language comprehension and education level. We heard from respondents that there are significant gaps, particularly in specialized training in other languages, for example, tutoring for the GED. In some cases, this significantly extended timelines for pursuing workforce training. Second, language. Overwhelmingly, English language acquisition was one of the most important areas for potential clients. As touched on earlier, it intersects with many facets of integration, and these intersections ought to be carefully considered as barriers and/or catalyzers to success. This could be framed around the level of English needed to accomplish other goals. For example, to enroll in an employment program, communicate with their children's teacher, and so on.
So the third one is community-based. Aspirations related to the community were of great significance to the potential clients. They shared that having family or friends who could help connect them with housing, watch after their kids, and just as importantly, provide social outlets to improve their quality of life. This is a complex area to measure, as potential clients who arrive in the US with a more robust network than others. We suggest inquiring about their friends in Colorado, their friend, their child's friend, and if they have someone to call if they need help. Several women noted that becoming a leader in their community was how they viewed success. Perhaps that would be the pinnacle of this dimension. So the last one is family-based. The ability for potential parents to care for their children came up in several responses, but often in direct ways. Setting aside financial capacities, this area became clear through responses about accessing healthcare, affording key technologies like cell phones and laptops, their children's success in school, and maintaining consistent housing. Broadly, this category includes areas that help ensure a stable household environment beyond the more explicit categories noted above. So as mentioned earlier, we ended up identifying 4 pillars of success that helped us create a client-driven evaluation for the Village Institute. So we created 3 deliverables for the Village Institute, which are an intake assessment form, a check-in guide, and an outtake assessment that will all focus on the 4 pillars.
So we aren't going to walk you through all the questions for time's sake, but we did just want to point out several key features that we think will really help ensure the success of these various assessments. So first is that we have consistent questions across surveys whenever possible, which will enable an individual when they're checking in to be able to really focus on their self-reflection and kind of track their progress over the same specific questions over time, and have worked with the Village Institute also to create kind of a method of turning that qualitative data into something that's more quantitative. And so the clients will be able to kind of look at a graph of their own kind of self-reflection and progress around specific goals. And it also aligns with other day-to-day tools. So something small that we created for the Village Institute was this personalized planner that enables clients to write in what their goals are for that month. And this dovetails also with the evaluation that they'll be able to do. So we really tried to think, thoughtfully about not just this being something that individuals would be using once a month and then kind of forget about, but really how to integrate it into their day-to-day lives. So we also wanted to talk just a little bit about what's coming next for the Village Institute, because they have a lot of exciting things going on. So just like 2 months ago, I think, the Village Institute's first residents moved in, and we'll be using our findings to influence their evaluations and get started with that. There have been some delays related to COVID-19, so delay in the childcare services and increased attention on food distribution through the physical Village Institute space. And then finally, Ellie and the team at the Village Institute have been reselected for the Pioneering Summer, which is a great program at the University of Denver and kind of focuses on incubation for like social enterprises and other small enterprises. So thank you so much for taking the time to tune in and watch our presentation. And please do feel free to drop us an email with any questions or follow-up that you might have. Rachel, do you want to say any last words?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for watching this, and it was an exciting experience for me.
Awesome. Thank you.